normally do, we will send this recording out to everyone at the end of the webinar. It's also posted on the Harlowe Group's website for anybody that wants to use that as a resource. So just really quickly, thank you all for taking the time to join us here today out of your busy schedules. My name is Jet Hadaway. Some of you I may have already met. Actually, my wife founded this company. I joined her later, and we have been really, really thriving in this industry since. I'm obviously not Italian, but my wife Karen was born and raised in Rome. I'm actually from the Atlanta area, but we decided to move back to Italy about 2 years ago with our two kids to continue growing this business and investing in Italy as a market. So now our entire team is now based in Italy throughout various regions. We are headquartered out of Rome. And so I'll let Maria Soli, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself really quickly as well?
Sure. Hi, I'm Maria Sole. I started working with Life Beyond the Room a year and a half ago. I embarked on this beautiful journey with them, and yeah, I'm so happy to be here and to have you guys know Italy, like the little gems of Italy.
Awesome.
Today.
Fantastic. So Maria Soli is our travel design manager, for those of you not familiar with how our team is set up. So she oversees a lot of the travel designing that goes into all of the itineraries that we work with for you, as well as new partner relationships, refining the ones that we already have, making sure there's great value alignment and values alignment with the people that we work with throughout the country. And today, we're really excited because we're going to be talking about Liguria. And most of you know Liguria for Cinque Terre, right? But we're going to be really going over more than just Cinque Terre today, because one of the missions of having these webinars and this kind of continuing education, as you might call it, for you guys as travel advisors, is that we really want to be a resource for you in expanding on beyond just the tourist destinations that you might already be familiar with. One of the challenges that we face in Italy, that's faced really all over the world, but certainly in other parts of Europe, is that we find that 80% of people that travel to this country are concentrated in, say, 20% of the areas, right? And so there's so much more beyond those tourist destinations that have become kind of overrun with mass tourism that can be enjoyed by people. And it's not just for the traveler to create a more enriching experience and have more meaningful connection when they travel here, but it's also for the places that they visit. Right, a lot of these places, and Cinque Terre is one of them that we'll be getting into a little bit later in more detail. Places like Cinque Terre, the Amalfi Coast, Venice, like places that come to mind like that. Those are places that are really struggling with a mass tourism problem. They're not built for tens of thousands of people per day. They were designed as a small fishing village, right? In this case, and so they don't have the infrastructure to support that. What's happened is we've experienced this slow, gradual erosion of culture and authenticity in these places, and it's burdensome to those communities. And it's also what it's leaving is something that's not as fulfilling for the people that are actually visiting these places. So at LBR, one of the tenets that we believe to be true in our business is that the way that we choose to experience a place typically will define what becomes of it. And so we feel that we have a responsibility as an industry, as industry professionals, to educate the consumer and to provide alternatives to these places that need to be alleviated from overcrowding. So we're going to be talking about that. One of the things that we find to be one of our responsibilities in these places is providing alternatives even within those crowded areas, and because they still do have a lot to offer, and you can see some of the iconic sites throughout the country. So without further ado, we do want to talk a little bit about, just for those of you who haven't listened to one of our webinars before or haven't worked with us yet, we always like to just do a little housekeeping, introduce, kind of a brief overview of our process, what to expect when working with us, and kind of address some, frequently asked questions that we're often asked by travel advisors looking for a DMC in Italy. So first of all, we already talked a little bit about who we are, keepers of tradition and culture and travel, specifically focused in the country of Italy as a DMC. We consider ourselves a sensorial travel DMC. And what sensorial travel means to us is that when we're traveling, we're engaging all of our senses, right? And so we want to make sure that we're putting people in a position where they're getting a real comprehensive feel and immersive element to their travel experience, which is one of the reasons that we really lean towards slow itineraries, spending more time in less places to get more out of that time. We are a multicultural and multilingual team, as you can tell. I'm not multilingual, just I'm like monocultural and monolingual right now, but my children speak great Italian, and and the rest of us speak multiple languages. So I'm kind of the black sheep in that regard. Um, we're travel designers as well, so we are not only forming great partnerships, but we're also implementing those in the form of beautiful itineraries that we designed using Travefy. We also have recently incorporated Axis into our programming as well. For those of you who use Axis, we find that most travel advisors are typically between those two. And even if you're not, it's just a great way to illustrate a quick itinerary that you can easily transfer into whatever platform that you're currently using. So just a little bit about how we work. So first and foremost, we vet every experience that we present to you, every experience, every accommodation. Our team has vetted it at some level. We have a pretty strict criteria that various partners have to meet. Obviously, they have to align with our travel ethos, which is this sort of idea of working with locals. We typically work with accommodations that are boutique. We consider boutique usually 20 rooms or below. That's obviously, we have exceptions to that. We'll talk a little bit about accommodations in a second. But then, we're really looking for people and partners that, one, they have a passion for what they do, but also they may not be the first people that show up on the front page of Google, right? Like they don't have the resources that some of these larger partners, maybe larger tour operators, might have. But that doesn't mean they don't have something to offer. And so what we do is we work with a lot of our partners, even small artisans, small farmers, people that are doing things and maintaining traditions that have been passed down to them, and we're kind of doing a quasi vocational training, kind of getting them familiar with how to interface with the American traveler, and so they're able to, by doing so, continue on these traditions and elevate their standard of living as well. So it's a really great two-way street and a great relationship that we're able to establish with these partners. We provide turnkey itineraries. So obviously, I mentioned we work in Travefy and Axis. So we typically really lean towards building the entire itinerary from beginning to end, soup to nuts. One exception to that is that we are always flexible when it comes to accommodations. And we understand that a lot of our travel advisors, you have relationships with accommodations that you may have worked with for a long time. You may have great perks through your membership, through your host agencies. And so we don't want to take anything away from that. So we always make exceptions when needed. We will give you plenty of options that we have vetted ourselves, that we have great relationships with, that we have negotiated rates with. But we do understand that from time to time, people have different accommodation preferences, and we do work with you on those cases. Local management. Most of you are accustomed, if you've worked with DMCs before, to the kind of 24-hour emergency hotline. We go a step further. So we have what we call the local manager, and these are folks that are full-time on our staff. They're located throughout the country. They have oftentimes interacted or interfaced already with the partners on your client's itinerary. They are your client's main point of contact when they arrive in country. So that means they're there not just for 24-hour emergencies, but they're also there as the extension of the concierge. So they're able to book reservations, change anything on the itinerary, assist them with finding a driver or a guide if that ever comes up, any kind of anything that's interim during their trip, they're there for them. And so we find that, one of our goals is to make international travel, specifically to Italy, as approachable for the American traveler as possible. And we understand that sometimes international travel can be intimidating. So having somebody in your corner that is in constant contact and that is available to you for anything you might need is always a good way to make people feel that. Let's see. We are for you if. So really quickly, we are for you if you're looking for a turnkey provider. Again, we've already talked on some of the exceptions that we make with regard to accommodations. We are not really for you if all you're looking for is the one-off service. So if you're just looking for the transfer or the one-off experience here and there, we're not really adding as much value there, because remember, we're not just a DMC, we're also experts in travel design. So being able to curate and compile these itineraries in such a way that makes sense based off of our experience in working with these partners and executing on these itineraries over and over again, that's a part of the value that we bring. Obviously, if we're just working with you on a one-for-one basis, if you're just trying to, schedule a transfer or one hotel here or there, we're not going to add that much value, both in terms of service and in terms of the economics of the trip. So we just want to make that pretty clear up front. We love to see travel advisor partners that charge a planning fee. We love to see that you, one, value your time, and that two, you have a client that's really engaged and has some skin in the game. We always find that leads to a better end result. And we also, we have an intro call with you guys. So if you haven't worked with us before, some of you may have already had these intro calls. We always love to get to know you and just understand your business, who you're working with, where most of your clients are traveling to, just so we can kind of get a broader understanding of sort of your client composition, so that we can help you to filter who the right fit really is for our services, because obviously we understand that that's not for everybody, right? Some people do want the Four Seasons tour through every iconic city in Italy over 7 weeks or over 7 days. That's not what we do, and so we always plan in elements of that. So first-time travelers to Italy, absolutely, there's absolutely a way to work with us in that way, but we spend more time with you just really making sure that we all are on the same page with what is the right fit, and ultimately that leads to really fantastic results. Minimum budget. A lot of people ask us what our minimum budget is. Typically, we find that 10,000 mark is where we can begin really adding value for you as a DMC. And again, this goes back to being a turnkey provider. We love to see people that value sustainable travel. We don't work with cruises. We don't work with large groups in terms of large group tourism. So, tour bus is not in our vernacular. There's just certain things like that we are just not a good fit for. And then planning ahead, right? We love to see that people are planning ahead. So, 4 months, 6 months, obviously a year ahead is fantastic. A lot of that depends on when you go. Yeah, Maria's always making a face. She's like, I have to design these things, So a lot of that depends on when you go and where you go. And how you go, right? So it's kind of that trifecta that you really have to take into consideration when thinking about how long you really need to plan ahead. So it's when, where, and how. Those are the 3 good questions to ask yourself when we're talking about that. And guys, by the way, I did mention this as we're going through this presentation. Please feel free to use the Q&A feature on the chat. We'll do our very best to address those questions either as we're going through the presentation or afterwards. So please feel free to use that. And here we go. Great. Maria Sole, do you want to chime in a little bit so I can catch my breath?
Sure. Yes. So we're talking about Liguria, a beautiful region located on the west side of Italy, in the northern part. So how to get to Liguria? If we're talking about international travel, the closest airport is the Milan one. We can either arrange transfers, which is roughly 2.5 hours via car, or a 3-hour train that gets you directly to Genoa. Otherwise, if you're traveling throughout Italy, Tuscany, Emilia-Romagna, Piedmont, we can there are trains that can get you directly there, or just via car. Bologna is 3 hours away. Genoa is a smaller airport, so is you get to Genoa via a connection. But yeah, wherever you are, you can get to it.
Yeah. So, I mean, Liguria, we have often found that it's a really great complement to an itinerary that flows through either finds its way through Florence or Emilia Romagna. So, Parma, Bologna, Modena, that area, kind of it's fairly well connected. And so, and then leaving out of Milan is always leaving or arriving from Milan. It's a good thing. And so depending on where you're coming from, either starting in La Spezia to the south or Genoa in the north, is something we would always suggest. And what's great about those two cities is that the Liguria in general, the Italian Riviera, so to speak, in this area is very well connected in terms of its public transportation, which we'll talk about in a minute. So travel seasons kind of mirror a lot of what you're seeing here throughout the country. Obviously, as you go further north, that does change a little bit. But typically your peak seasons are going to be very similar to what you would see in other parts of the country. So kind of that middle sort of summer, early summer, early fall. So June to September, that's your kind of super peak seasons for this area. Great time to visit. It's obviously shoulder seasons. The later you go, that can be better. It depends on where you go. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So like, for example, if you stay in within the Cinque Terre, like Riomaggiore or Manarola or something, those are very, very small towns and they've become very tourist towns. So it's going to be a lot harder to find things that are actually open and active, both in terms of accommodations and things to do. So as you get later into the season, as it gets cooler, or as, if you're trying to go really early in the season, sometimes that's not as viable as you might think if you're staying in those small towns. Some of the larger towns that we'll be talking about today, obviously you can go year round. So yeah, that's pretty standard, right? So yeah, hotel closures November through March, like I just mentioned. So that kind of wintertime, it's really hard to find much in those, especially in those smaller kind of villages. Maria, so tell us about the focaccia, because a lot of you guys,
Okay,
like, I
yes.
thought focaccia was only a Puglia thing, and that's not true. So what is it about this focaccia that's awesome?
That's a huge mistake because Ligurians are very, very passionate about their focaccia, which is totally different from the Puglia one. And they actually start their day by dipping their focaccia in their cappuccino, which I
It's
know
sacrilegious.
sounds so weird at first, but at least once you have to try it. And because like you have this thin crust focaccia, like warm, it's usually warm, dipped in that cappuccino is an experience. It's a very cool thing. And they're very passionate. Again, don't ask for focaccia with cherry tomatoes or olives, because that's
Mhm.
not what that's all about. It's usually very plain, just olive oil and salt. But yeah, it's a
Nice.
cool way to start the day.
One of the really cool things about Italy, and obviously living here, has been just every single region has its own palette of food and culinary, innovations, and like it's so interwoven into the local culture and the dialect and the like history, and it's so cool. Everything in Italy tells a story, and everybody in Italy likes to chime in on that. So it's really cool. I love it. So yeah, just a little bit. We did mention that this part of like Liguria specifically as a region, especially on the coast, is fairly well connected. So one of the great things about that is in terms of budget, right? How do you're always trying to break down budget into usually one of three categories, like how important is transfers, how important are accommodations, and how important are experiences, and where do we want to bucket the budgets for those different things, right? For those really three core elements of an itinerary. One of the great things about Liguria is your transportation bucket is usually the lightest here. And that's normally because the vast majority of the places that people visit are very well connected by rail. So you have the rail system that connects all five Cinque Terre. It also connects Portovenere with La Spezia, and it connects all the way up through some of the other coastal towns on the Riviera that we'll be discussing today, all the way up to Genoa and beyond. So it's a really well-connected area. Obviously, traveling by train is much cheaper than private transfer. Private transfers in this area particularly can be tough. And that's just because the roads are really windy. It's not as easy. There's like no direct route to the sea. Things they take a really long time. Like I think the last time I took a private transfer from Genoa to Vernazza, it was something like 2.5 hours, right? But by train, that would have been much shorter than that. So just so you know, it's really well connected. It's always nice, especially in these really small, limited towns. You don't have to worry about parking. You just get off the train. What's great about, especially, and I'll just speak for Cinque Terre, is that as soon as you get off, you're in town, right? You get off the train station, you can walk right down to the water, or right up to your accommodation in most cases. Yeah, so really well connected. One of the cons is that because of the topography, and the very steep, beautiful cliff lines, which is one of the reasons people to come to see this part of the country, you do get landslides from time to time, which does cause delays. So you will find that. And obviously, if you've ever traveled in Italy by rail, they love to strike from time to time. And so one good thing about working with the DMC, us included, is that our team monitors that for you. So we typically know when those strikes are happening. They're well organized, typically well scheduled. So we have some advance to make any kind of adjustments or create a contingency plan that we agree on to make sure that your client doesn't feel the pinch of those situations if and when they happen. So, all right. So we're going to be taking you guys on a journey through Liguria. And we're going to be starting in the north and we're going to be working our way down south. So we're going to start, in this case, in Genoa, and we're going to start to work our way down some of the lesser known towns leading up to the Cinque Terre. We'll go through the Cinque Terre and we'll be ending kind of in that La Spezia, Portofino area. And as we go through, anyway, we'll go ahead and just get started. So we'll talk about Genoa really quick. So for those of you that don't know much about Genoa, it is the largest city in Liguria, next to La Spezia. It's actually a really beautiful city. It was the kind of the capital of the Genovese maritime superpower at the time. So this was kind of during the 15th and 16th centuries, kind of in that Renaissance era. This was a booming metropolis. And so what's really cool about the city is they have been able to really, the city center is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. They've really done a fantastic job in maintaining their original architecture. So a lot of the really tiny little narrow streets that wind through called Carugi. There are these beautiful palazzi that still exist that are in really, really great shape that kind of do represent that sort of Renaissance era. So a lot of these 16th century palazzi that they used to host dignitaries and statespeople that were visiting. So it's just a really cool city, and it's a real Italian city, right? So it's a real place. It's not just a tourist town. There are lots of people that live there. There's lots of industries. It is one of the largest ports in the country. So there's a lot of economic activity going on. It's also the birthplace of Columbus. So like their maritime history is really rich. So it is a cool place to see. It is worth staying a couple days or more if you can. Because there's just a lot to see and do, and it does have its own charm and its own culture. And they obviously invented pesto, so the food's fantastic. Yeah, so it's a really cool place to start on this journey. And again, very well connected, a small airport. So even if you have somebody in another part of the country, or even in another part of Europe, right, there are often connections to other European airports. So domestically, it can be a really good strategic place for people to fly into if they want to do this itinerary. Otherwise, they can come right down from Milan if they're flying, direct internationally to Italy. Marisol, do you want to add anything on this?
I think a cool fun fact about Genoa, we're talking about that the little alleyways. Actually, in the city, there is the narrowest one in Europe, which is like
Oh, wow.
50 centimeter. Yeah, it's like so small. It's like this. You can barely fit yourself in it. So yeah, it's a cool one. You can easily get lost in it because it has all these little hallways throughout the
In
city.
America, we just call that a crevice.
Crevice.
That doesn't sound like an alleyway. That's really cool.
Okay.
Nice. All right. So really quickly, before we start talking about accommodations, we always love to introduce some of our featured accommodations in these different areas, not just for your information so that you can, obviously patronize them in your travel designing, but also just to kind of shed light on what type of accommodations we typically work with. One of the biggest, I think, barometers for one of the criteria that we use unofficially is that we always say that when you're in the lobby, you should know exactly where you are, right? There's so many accommodations that get diluted down to just be the bare bones for the utility of a place to stay. And or they lean into luxury so much that they don't recognize the magic and the value of the things in the community around them that makes those places so unique. So we really love working with places that have a very strong sense of place and character. So what we did is we came up with a really cool branding system, like a scoring system. So when we go into a place and we vet a new accommodation or even an existing one, we always score them based against these criteria, some of which are included here. So sustainability, are there sustainability metrics in place? Those are just basic value check for us. Location, we love to see, like, if you're central, we're a little more relaxed on how heavy it is, right? If you're if you're isolated and kind of rural and out there, you need to be a little heavier on the amenities, right? So we want to kind of make sure that that's a well-balanced thing. We want to make sure that these places have a strong sense of character, a strong sense of story. We love to see that the ownership is actively involved. And then the culinary aspect, obviously we're in Italy, so there has to be something there that's pretty special for us that weighs pretty heavily into this brand score. So the brand score is between 1 and 5. If it makes it onto our directory, it's approved, right? Just know that this is kind of a barometer for where we place this in terms of our in terms of these criteria. So it's just kind of a good comprehensive mix of things. So we'll talk about the first accommodation in Genoa. And Marisol, can you still hear me okay? Okay, thank you. All right, my Bluetooth died. So Palazzo Durazzo. So this is a really great example of one of these well-preserved historic palazzi in the city center. So this was one of the few palazzi that were selected by the council, their whatever their governing body was in the late 1600s, to host statesmen and foreign dignitaries and people like this that were coming into the city. So they have done a fantastic job of preserving this place. It's not actually a hotel. This is a serviced suite. This is very much at a 5-star level in a lot of ways that we'll talk about here in a second. So 12 rooms, brand score 4. Fantastic location right in the historic city center. So you're surrounded by other palazzi. So it does embody a lot of what the kind of defines the city in a way. So we'll talk about some of what makes this kind of a 5-star level property, right? Regardless of the fact that it's not technically a hotel, it is they call it service suites. Typically what you get with service suites are more for your money. You get larger rooms, nicer rooms, maybe a little bit less accommodation, not 100% full service, but typically you're going to get better location, better quality of the actual place for a much better value. And so it's a historic palazzo. There's a spa on site. They actually have a 24-hour front desk service, which is not always common in a service suite scenario. Breakfast is also included, so another thing that is not always common in that scenario. And then again, this location is fantastic. So this is a really awesome accommodation for history lovers and even like people that are really looking for a higher end stay, but may want to stretch their budget in other areas of the trip, right? This is a really great way to not compromise on the consistency and the cohesiveness of that kind of luxury client that's wanting to maybe either spend more time in country or stretch their budget in other areas of their travels. So that we always love working with these kinds of places for that reason, right? So it provides a good mix of alternatives. So great kind of hub to start off with in Genoa. Do you want to talk about Lavagna a little bit, Marisol?
Sure. If we're moving down towards Cinque Terre, our next stop is Lavagna. Lavagna, which in Italian actually means, it's the word for slate, because the city itself it had a huge production of slate forests. and like the name comes from it. It's a beautiful coastline town. It has this big 4 kilometer sandy beach. So and it has the Italian feel of it. It's not like Portofino, which is maybe more touristy. This is where Italians go for vacation and live all year long. So it's a very cool hidden gem, not touched by mass tourism, that is very worth to visit. And
Awesome.
we have an incredible accommodation.
Well,
Oh,
first,
no, sorry.
It's okay.
I forgot.
So no, just to kind of go into what Marisol was just saying about what makes these really like local, like quintessential Italian cities like this so special is one of the coolest things you can do for somebody is send them to a sagra or send them to a festival, right? In these little towns, because it really, like, if you want to capture what makes like the social fabric and these places super unique, if you want to just get a full taste of that, like, go to one of these things. And so this is one of them that happens in this town every August. But there's always things like this that are happening where the entire community is getting together. It's all locals. I guarantee they're going to be the only ones in that crowd that speak English, right? Maybe not that much, but they'll be one of the few Americans. There's not going to be surrounded by, by cruise ship people. This is a real Italian community. And so, like, the food is real. The wine is real. The music is real. The stories are real. The festival is real. Like, everything is just like it transports you. So incorporating things like this is so, so cool. And it does create stories for your clients to come back and tell their friends. Is like, man, you'll never believe what I did. So this is just a really great window into that local culture. And we always encourage that. And so if we ever have a saga happening within these towns, which is why we love putting people in these places, we always make sure and add that on the itinerary as something to do and something to see. So, sorry, Marisol, let's talk about the accommodation here. This is a really cool place.
Yes. Villa Riviera, this is an incredible accommodation. It has only 15 rooms, is a brand score of 5 for us. So it really reflects what we try to give to clients. It has 2 buildings, one with 9 rooms and one with 6 rooms. It has these beautiful original frescoes in the room and throughout the building that gives you, it's just breathtaking to see. It's an adults only, but it has like 2 restaurants, one which is more contemporary cuisine and one more an osteria kind of restaurant. It has a spa, this beautiful infinity pool that overlooks the water. And if from the accommodation, there is this pathway that in about 20 minutes takes you directly down to the sea. So it's very well connected. Again, for people that are more on that they feel that they can walk. Otherwise, we can arrange transfers to get them down to the city center.
Awesome. And they have their own beach club, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So they have like the umbrellas and the towel and the seats and everything. And so they have this, a lot of people that travel to the coast, especially in areas like this, they're always asking for that like Italian beach club experience. So these stabilimenti are, everywhere. And in this town in particular, you've got a 4-kilometer stretch of sandy beach, which is not common in Liguria in general. And so what that provides is an opportunity to get a little bit of that beach club culture and to enjoy that lungomare and kind of immerse yourself in that unique Italian environment. So, and again, not a highly touristic area. So it's still very authentic, very much a destination for Italians. So it's giving them a really cool, immersive kind of experience of this particular region, which is really cool. Awesome. Sestri Levante. So, Marisol, why don't you talk a little bit about this too, because you spent time.
So if we keep going down, okay. So after Lavagna, we find Sestri Levante, which is another typical Italian summer vacation location. It's between 2 bays, so you're surrounded by water. We have the Bay of Silence and the Bay of Fables, and it has again that Italian charm that you don't find in bigger places such as, again, Portofino, or even, I mean, even Cinque Terre. It has that authentic feel, but there's so much crowds, and if you want to slow down and just enjoy the beach and experience the Italian Riviera, that's the right place.
Mm-hmm. So I think it would probably be fair to say that Sestri Levante is kind of a good representation of a city that is representative of kind of the scale of some of the Cinque Terre villages, but it's not experiencing the same issues with mass tourism. So it kind of does give you a little bit of both worlds, right? So you could still say like this is sort of this quintessential fishing village, right? But it's not completely overrun. And so it still feels very much authentic and intact. And that I think for us is really important in terms of using this as a great destination as well. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about this.
And yes, here we have Hotel Helvetia, which is on the bigger side for our standards, but still a super cool accommodation to offer to clients. Is like 3 minutes from the main street of Sestri Levante, so super central, in front of the beach. They have their own little beach club, but walk 300 meters more and then you can get to the real Italian stabilimento. They have a restaurant, an infinity pool, and they can also arrange wellness treatments. And yeah, it's a very cool place to stay.
Beautiful view. Moneglia. Awesome.
Okay. So Moneglia is actually one of the most beautiful villages in Italy, which is pretty awesome. It gives you that combination of beaches and mountains, because from there there are a lot of mountain trails that are walking distance from the city center, so you can get the best of both worlds. Again, it doesn't have it's not mass tourism destination. It has the authentic feel, and Italians often choose Moneglia as well for their vacations.
Awesome. This place is really cool.
Yeah, and talking about trains, I mean, we're traveling by trains. This place is directly connected to the train station. Don't worry about chaos, noises. You cannot hear a thing from there, but they have an elevator that connects you directly to there. So if you're traveling via train, it's very convenient for luggages. And yes, it has 19 rooms. It is a brand score of 4, so pretty awesome. And this place offers a lot of things on site. So if you have clients that they don't feel like going out every day, they can arrange cooking classes, wine tastings, even cocktail tastings. They produce their own wine. It's family run. There is the daughter and the mother always on site welcoming guests. It's more on the eclectic side, as you can see in the picture, so it's not for everybody, but it's a very cool accommodation, and you're like 5-minute walk from the main town.
Yeah, so really central, well connected. Yeah, gives you a real sense of being in that community too. That's really cool. Awesome. Yeah, it's a beautiful accommodation. Fantastic. Well, thank you. So now we are starting to kind of make our way into the Cinque Terre. And so I think this is a really good opportunity just to kind of give you guys a quick overview of this region. And this is probably the part that everyone is the most familiar with, both in terms of, you know, having seen images of it, but also I'm sure as industry professionals, having sent a lot of your clients here, people always ask about Cinque Terre. What they don't always realize is Cinque Terre is actually 5 towns, right? Hence the phrase Cinque, 5, Terre, earths. And so these 5 towns are all connected. And as we mentioned before, thankfully today, they're all very well connected by rail. So here you can get from really one town to the next fairly easily with a train pass. So in this section, you get the Cinque Terre pass, which is basically what allows you to take the train from basically any of these towns to the next. And so if you're staying in the Cinque Terre, it's a really great resource. We always provide it to people staying here because it allows them to say hike for one portion and then take the train back. Or just take the train throughout and do their own self-guided tour, or experience other, activities that might be on their itinerary in other towns. Because bear in mind, these towns they were fishing villages, right? So they're very, very small. They're located in these ravines that are extremely steep. They're iconic. They're beautiful. But the bottom line is that they were not designed to host hundreds of thousands of people a day. And unfortunately, what you get now is if you go during peak season, especially, bear in mind, we just talked about how well connected they are. Well, that's a blessing and a burden, right? So the blessing is you can move pretty freely between each, and the burden is that they're also very well connected to places like La Spezia, which is the main port of entry for large cruise ships. And so it's very typical for 7,000-8,000 people to jump off a ship, hop on the train for $20, and then go and see all of these things in a day. And so what happens is during the day, they swell with day trippers, right? But if you choose to stay here in the evening, they empty out, and it's just the people that are staying there. And so it does have a magic, element to it if you choose to stay, which we always recommend people do. The day trip is another no word for us. We every now and then there are exceptions, but we don't like it. We don't like day trips because what happens is it forces you into this channel of people that are all going at the same time. And so you've got this range where you're kind of a part of the crowd, and it doesn't feel real, and it doesn't feel authentic, and it's just become kind of a sea of people, and it feels like Disneyland, right? And that's not what we want. That's not what you travel halfway across the world to see. And it's certainly not what you're paying, to see it. So, but this area is absolutely beautiful. It is iconic, and there's a reason why people go to see it, right? And there's a way to see it. There's a way to experience the Cinque Terre that is real and that is authentic, and that is a little slower. It's got fantastic hiking. So one of the things you see this blue path along the Cinque Terre, they're also very well connected by footpath. And this is some of the most beautiful hiking in the country. It would rival the Path of the Gods through the Amalfi Coast. It is really at that level. There are wineries that kind of scale the terracing down the hills into the sea. There's farms everywhere. There's a tremendous agricultural scene that's happening. And then the towns themselves are just beautiful. They're absolutely iconic. If you're going in the shoulder seasons, it's wonderful weather. It's usually very comfortable. The distances between the towns are not that great. There are a couple longer stretches, but for the most part, as you can see on the right-hand side, they're fairly manageable. And so even if you don't choose to do the entire Cinque Terre, which I never recommend people do, it's a long day, you can do small sections of it. And what's great is that you can do one section one day, have lunch, take the train back. The next day, take the train to that town that you left, do the next section, right? Have lunch, do an experience, take the train back, so on and so forth. So it's a really cool way to kind of break it up and manage that type of experience. So let's see. I gotta get my screen out of the way. Sorry, guys. All right. Yeah, Monterosso. So I stayed here a few years ago. Monterosso is a really cool place. So this is the most northern point in the Cinque Terre. This is where Cinque Terre starts. And so Monterosso is it's one of the larger of the 5 villages. It's not as steep. And so there's a little more development. So what that means is that there typically are a few more accommodation options. There's just a little more variety here. So it's a really great place to start. It's a great place to stay because you're at the trailhead, and it just makes things simple because you can kind of hike down to one, train back, hike down to the next, train back, just like I described earlier. So it's a really cool place to start. They do have a little bit of a beach scene there too, which is cool. Most of these towns are just like basically ports and they drop right in. This town does have kind of a rocky beach, and so it is a little bit more spacious. So for people that feel maybe a little too claustrophobic and or aren't great with stairs, this is a really good option if they're looking to stay in the Cinque Terre. And Vernazza So that's the next one. And we will be talking about a couple accommodations here, but bear in mind, we've got quite a few. So just for the interest of time, we're not going to go to every single one that we work with. Vernazza is a gorgeous place. This is the next town down. So they have this beautiful, they're known for this beautiful watchtower that you can see in the photo on the left here. Just stunning, stunning views. It kind of juts out. It's got this little peninsula that kind of comes out, 360 views everywhere. The food scene here is pretty good. It's got a really great port, so it's a great place for people to kind of come in and out if they're looking to do some boat experiences, which we highly recommend, especially in the Cinque Terre. We'll talk a little bit about that later. And in Vernazza is La Mala. So La Mala is a really, again, really, really cool. They're classified as a B&B, but it's a 4-star level accommodation for sure. So this is a family run and owned. So a husband and wife, they both born and raised in Vernazza, and they converted what was their family home complex into this really, really cool B&B, which is just so well done and fantastic. So the views from here are honestly just incredible. Like, they've got these beautiful terraces that come out. You can see the sea on all sides, and then you've got this tower, the castle, that is right above you. It's like right there. So it's right next to the castle, and it's just stunning. It's a really cool place. You're high enough up above the town to where you're not in the noise. And so it's a really nice kind of tranquil area to be if you just need some quiet. Again, the accommodations are fantastic. What's nice about this accommodation is they have a lot of options for families. So if you, like, for example, a lot of them have kind of like an extra room tacked on. I think there's even one with bunk beds. So if you're looking for like a good like family place with kids, it's very well connected. They've got some sweet options that are really nice. Centrally located, you can walk right into town. The only challenge with this accommodation, you'll find this in the Cinque Terre a lot, is that stairs are a thing. And there are a lot of them, and they are steep, and they are not ADA anything. There's no ADA. So you've got to be in shape. You've got to be able to get up and down. Now they do port your luggage for you. So you don't have to worry about carrying your bags up. But just know that every time you go into town, it's 150, 200 stairs up and down. And so, like, I was down at the bar one night, and I was like, oh man, I forgot my wallet. And I was so upset because I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to climb these stairs. By the time I got back, I thought I was gonna have a heart attack. So, like, you just have to be like very conscious of, don't forget anything in the room. So, but overall, I mean, it's a really cool accommodation. It's a really cool place. So highly, highly, highly recommend it. Yeah, and the terrace is beautiful. So the next town over is Cornelia. So again, really, really gorgeous town. This is one of the most kind of photographed towns. So it's, as you can see on the right-hand side, it's got this just beautiful cliff line that drops right into the sea. And I haven't been here in a while. I don't remember. Marisol, do you know if I know it has water access. I think it's really small. It's not a big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's smaller because it's elevated. Like, even Vernazza has direct access. This one is more elevated. So it has water access, but it's smaller.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then Monarola, same thing. So just really beautiful. I mean, one of the cool things is, like, each of these towns has its own kind of unique charm, right? It's extremely Instagrammable, right? Everything is that way in this area. But it's a really cool experience to hike from one to the other, and really, like, you're kind of moving. It's interesting because you're moving in and out of, like, nature and a little bit of chaos and a little bit of charm and a little bit of this and that. And it's just really needed. So every single place has its own unique charm. And we always offer, like, a whole list of really great restaurants that we vetted in each one. So it's a cool thing to kind of plan if you're going to do like a self-guided hike one day, to kind of plan it around that food, right, experience. Or if we've included experiences in your itinerary in this area, which we often do, planning some of those hikes around that, because as you'll see in a moment, a lot of these experiences are kind of integral to the hike. So this, like, Cinque Terre is most enjoyed by people that enjoy hiking. I'll say that for sure, because of what it has to offer in that area. All right, La Torretta Lodge. So again, this is in Manaroa. This is a really nice accommodation. So it's again, beautiful views. It's a little tucked back, so it's not right in the middle of town. It's kind of on this, it's right off this kind of windy road. But so you have to kind of, you can either take the stairs down or you have to follow the road. So it's a good like 10-minute walk into town. But it is a really nice, it does offer fantastic accommodation for great value. Which like you never see. The showers are big. So like there's a lot more space here, and that can be true anytime you move away from these historic city centers, right? As you move away from the older buildings and the older historic centers, you're always going to kind of find that you have more space. What you compromise is obviously location. In this case, we did not find that to be the case. It's still very connected, very accessible, very close to the train station. So, if they're arriving by train, which we would recommend, again, they're met by one of the people from the accommodation. They help them port their luggage. And then it's just a very easy transition into the accommodation where they can settle in and then enjoy the town at their leisure. Oh, and one of the really cool things about this place is that they do have their own private jacuzzi on their balcony, and that's always really cool. All right, and then Rio Maggiore. So now we're kind of on the very tip, and a lot of you guys probably recognize this picture on the left. That is pretty much, that's the most famous iconic spot that people take pictures of this area. And for some reason, it always gets confused with the Amalfi Coast. Like nobody can ever place it. They're like Amalfi Coast or Cinque, like they don't know which one is which. So this is Cinque Terre. So if you see these pastel colors, that's what that is. And this in particular, if you see this like very famous red house, it's very recognizable. That's Rio Maggiore. So that's the most southern part of of the Cinque Terre. Good little nightlife in Rio Maggiore as well. So lots of little bars and restaurants down there. Really cool stuff to do. Sunset line. Again, this is actually a very similar accommodation to the one we just showed you in Manarola. So this accommodation, again, it's kind of perched up. It's a little bit higher. It's out of the chaos. It's not super central, but again, well connected. 10-minute walk or less, and it's same thing, like private jacuzzi, fantastic views. Like it has a lot to offer. Great value for where it is and what it offers. Again, more spacious than anything you're going to get like right in town. So La Mala was kind of an example of what you would get in town versus this is just a tick out. But again, very well connected. The train systems all works very similarly.
And it's great if you have like families or group because it's only 4 rooms and we can get like the whole accommodation for themselves. So that's very cool.
Yeah, awesome. Really good point. Awesome. So, Marisol, do you want to talk a little bit about this cooking class?
Yeah. So still in Rio Maggiore, we have this incredible cooking class led by Barbara. It's not in the city center, like it's not in the town where all the house is. It's about a 25-minute walk from the center. We can obviously arrange transfers if clients don't feel like walking all the way there. She can really personalize, customize the experience as much as we want based on the client's level of cooking. We had a client that was very into cooking and she did like a super cool fish focused experience on this beautiful terrace overlooking the water. So it's if you have foodies, that's the right experience for them.
Awesome. Great. And this is another really great one. So again, this kind of goes back to what I was mentioning earlier, where some of these experiences are sort of integrated into the hiking, right? So this is a really great experience. And I believe this is between Rio Maggiore and Manarola, or is it? No, it's between, sorry, I misspoke. It's between Rio Maggiore and Porto Venere. So it's a good little walk. But it's on this stunning cliffside. It's right along the path. It's on a beautiful organic winery and farm. And so it's a really like quintessential producer for this area. And it gives them a really cool taste of this kind of farm to table experience and like focused around Ligurian cuisine in this beautiful backdrop. Obviously, it's a great way to kind of end a hike. Again, it's it's about a 5-mile hike from Rio Maggiore. So it's a pretty long commitment. Now, for those that are not interested in hiking, it's still accessible via transfer. So we can arrange a transfer, and then it's just a quick 10-minute walk from there. So it's still relatively accessible, but again, if you're integrating this into a hiking trip, it's just a fantastic, really, really cool option. All right, great. And then the hike, we'll talk a little bit about this just in general. So the whole hike, gosh, I forget how long it is. I think it's something like 14 kilometers. I may be a little off there, but it's something like that. Something about 14 kilometers. I've done the whole hike with my wife back before we had kids and we were in better shape. But we started from the top, Monte Rosso, and then we worked our way all the way down to Rio Maggiore. And I will say that's a really long day. So I wouldn't recommend it. But what we always provide to people that are interested in the hiking is, in addition to the train pass, you can also have you also need a trail pass. So you need a pass to be able to enter and access each of these trails. We just provide the pass for the whole region so they can access whatever trail they want. You can also couple those, so you can have the train and the trail pass. So what that means is they can do exactly what I just described earlier, where maybe they take different legs, they plan different legs out of their hikes based on experiences, food, general interest, and then they train back, and all of that's included in one pass. So it's a really easy one-stop shop product for them to kind of navigate themselves around this region really easily. And that's one of the amazing things about this area, is that it is so well connected. I will say the last trail from, I think it's Manarola to Rio Maggiore, that was closed for a number of years because of a landslide, I think.
La Via dell'Amore, yes, but they reopened it recently.
So they reopened it. So,
mm-hmm.
So Karen and I, we hiked all 4, and we had this last one left. And it had this sign, it said, I would not recommend anybody do this, but it said like closed, it was closed off. And we were like, man, we made it this far. Like, there's no way we're not hiking this trail. So we, and like one other dude, we all jumped it and like went, and we got to the very end. Like, I mean, the very end, like at Rio Maggiore, and there was no way out because it was like basically this wall. And so we had to like scale an overpass to get out. So lesson learned, if there's a sign that says don't enter, doesn't matter what language it's in, it's gonna have a big old red circle with a white line through it. Don't enter. But it's beautiful. I don't regret it. I regret nothing. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. All right. So obviously people think Cinque Terre, they think Italian Riviera, they think boats, and boats are always a fantastic way to get around the towns. It's a wonderful way to see the coastline. One thing that people don't understand though, especially if they're staying in, say, a place like Portofino, is that you cannot bring a large boat into the Cinque Terre at all. So if you're looking to be on a yacht or you want to be on a large boat, and by large boat, I mean 78 feet or more, that's large. And so they will not be able to enter into the Cinque Terre area because it is a protected marine reserve. And so the partners we work with obviously know that. They have smaller boats. They do scale in size, but they're not by any means yacht, right? You're not going to have like a charter that is going to be able to come in there. So we always make sure that people understand that when we're talking about boats from and into the Cinque Terre. You always want to be kind of within the range that allows you to get in and out of some of these places. The boat partners we work with, they are fantastic people. They all grew up in that area. So like they've been on boats in and out of the Cinque Terre since they could drive. And so one of the really cool things about this experience, which I did, I think last year, 2 years ago. So La Spezia is where 70% of the country's mussels, like clams, mussels, and oysters are produced. And so what you have is when you go into La Spezia, which is this huge harbor, there's all of these like lines of barrels and like floating objects in the water, and they're all organized into like a grid pattern. And you're like, what is that? And so what they do, one of the experiences that we offer is this mussel and oyster experience, where you actually get to go into one of these mussel and oyster farms with the boat captain. And you're on the same nice boat that you've been on all day, right? You've got your Chardonnay and you've got your like, bollicini and all that stuff on board, but you're getting into these little farms, and like the farmers will literally on the boat, they're showing you how they harvest the mussels and how they grow and all the oysters. And of course, anybody in Italy that does this kind of stuff are extremely passionate. So they're so knowledgeable. They tell you exactly how it all works. They show you how to like assemble these oysters and mussels on these ropes, these just like 30-foot long ropes that go all the way down into the sea. And they pull them up and they're full of mussels and oysters. And they take the oysters, they shuck them right there for you on the boat, and like you just eat them right out of it. It's so cool. Really, really super cool. So like you get this experience, and like nobody does that. That's not something that people do. And so it's really this neat kind of like you're getting to meet the fishermen and their son and like see how they're doing all this stuff. And it's just such a neat interaction with a local experience. And that's one of those things of like continuing and preserving, culture and tradition, right? Through these types of things is really awesome. That experience for them is super meaningful for their business, because not only are they getting to share something they love, but it's supporting their family too. So within this experience, you get to visit Porto Venere, which is beautiful, touristy, but beautiful, bigger than some of the Cinque Terre. So there's more variety, really cool place to shop. There's a really cool pescaria, which is right there. So normally what we'll do is we'll do like a really cool fish meal, or mussels or oysters, right? So you can kind of connect what you just did with your meal. So it's a really cool experience overall. So it's not just like a boat ride, right? It's a real immersive, like, let's show you what this culture is all about. That's one option that we do with people, that makes our experiences a little different. But you can obviously do the general, we want to visit all 5 Cinque Terre, right? You can do that as well. So there's a lot of flexibility with the boat experience. Great. So Marisol, why are these buildings so colorful? Can you tell us?
Yeah. So we mentioned that they are obviously little fisher villages. So at first they thought about making them so colorful so they could see it from the coast before approaching it. And nowadays it's actually what makes those little towns so special and unique. So it started as a safety reason, and now it's what makes this beautiful region and beautiful area so unique in Italy.
Yeah, it's really cool. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much all for being here and listening to what we've had to say about this amazing region. I absolutely have a love relationship with Liguria as a region. Bearing in mind the places that we're often promoting and visiting, we can't ignore the iconic destinations. As much as we want to lean into off the beaten path, and as much as we want to do the things that, like nobody's ever heard of, all of that's great. And that's important too, right? But just as important is making sure that we're treating these destinations that are being affected by mass tourism and are losing some authenticity, that we're leaning into things, experiences, supporting businesses, staying in places that still very much have retained themselves as kind of beacons of authenticity within this sea of mass tourism. So we really, really think that's just as important. And that's why we're always trying to kind of incorporate both, right? Because these places are beautiful. There's a reason people go to see them in mass, is because they have something to offer. But we think they have even more than what most people get to experience. So that's how we approach these destinations. And on that note, our next webinar, some of you may have listened to our last Amalfi Coast webinar. That webinar was titled Off-Season Amalfi Coast, and it really talked about kind of treating these destinations as sort of more of an off-season destination, which is great. We really looked at it again. We're obviously there's a lot of interest in this area. I think one of the biggest challenges here is that cost is crazy. It really is. It's absolutely gone bonkers in the Amalfi Coast, and that's a problem for us as much as it is for them, right? And so one of the things that we really thought was needed is to uncover some of the more tucked away hidden gems within the Amalfi Coast that most people still may not have on their radar. And we touched on some of those last time, but what we really touched on more was, these are the times that you want to go. And we talked about some of the experiences and a few accommodations. What we want to do now is really introduce some different destinations within the Amalfi Coast itself and talk about some experiences that are lending themselves more to local. So we will be doing the webinar actually coming up fairly soon. So this one's kind of a little bit back to back in terms of how we pace ourselves. So October 24th, so end of October, same time. So Beyond the Postcard, Discovering the Real Amalfi Coast Away from Mass Tourism. So if you guys have inquiries for this area, if you want to know more about how we work in this area, we highly, highly encourage you to try and attend this. We'd love to have you. Yeah, so you can just scan the QR code there, and let me see really quickly if we have any questions. No, great. All right, awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much. It's always an honor for us to be able to do this with you all. I hope you've found value in it. I hope you'll continue to join us. Be on the lookout. We have some really new, exciting things coming up. We are going to be launching a new podcast in the coming months where we'll be taking a much deeper dive into talking about some of these things with our partners candidly. So you'll get to know our partners a little bit, as well as these regions from a local's voice. And also kind of not just be informed on what things you can see and do in those areas, but also kind of get a sense for, you know, why it's important to direct some of your clients into these different things in different areas as opposed to the same old tour bus. So again, guys, thank you so much. And we look forward to being with you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys. Thanks
Ciao.
for joining. Jet, Marisol, thank you. Jet, remind me not to ever go hiking with you.
Just follow what the signs tell you. Don't follow
Right.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, no, exactly right. So, but no, that's great. All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Bye-bye.
Ciao. How do we